Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 20, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vikas Swami Prabhupada. Prayer of Queen Kunti to Krishna. Tata paramahansanam muninam amalatmanam bhakti yoga vidhanartham katham pashyema histriyaha. Translation. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service under the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? Purport. Even the greatest philosophical speculators cannot have access to the region of the Lord. It is said in the Upanishads that the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead, is beyond the range of the thinking power of the greatest philosopher. He is unknowable by great learning or by the greatest brain. He is knowable only by one who has his mercy. Others may go on thinking about him for years together, yet he is unknowable. This very fact is corroborated by the queen who is playing the part of an innocent woman. Women in general are unable to speculate like philosophers, but they are blessed by the Lord because they believe at once in the superiority and almightiness of the Lord, and thus they offer obeisances without reservation. The Lord is so kind that He does not show special favor only to one who is a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of purpose. For this reason only women generally assemble in great number in any sort of religious function. In every country and in every sect of religion it appears that the women are more interested than the men. This simplicity of acceptance of the Lord's authority is more effective than showy, insincere religious fervor. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Nama Shreshtham Manamapi Shat Chiputramatra Surupam Rupam Tasya Gujamura Purim Bhaturim Goshtha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the verse, Kunti Devi cites the disqualification of women to know Krishna. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada cites the qualification and says they're actually better for understanding Krishna. Is that correct? Not exactly. Not exactly. The point is made that those who are very great philosophers, it's expected to be men. They're expected to have a very intelligent approach. But Krishna comes to give the process of bhakti yoga, and women can more easily take to that. Now, actually, in relation to Krishna, everyone is female. Krishna is Purusha and everyone is Prakriti. Krishna is the dominator and all others are dominated. So these roles that we have as men and women in the material world, they're all artificial anyway, but the mentality, the psychology that comes with woman woman's body in human form, is more suitable for devotion to Krishna. And men, the mentality that comes with that is more suitable for self-realization. Are they mutually exclusive? No. The philosophical consideration, trying to understand everything, that's more of a male enterprise. And simple devotion is more of a female enterprise. Therefore, bhakti is said to be female also, Bhakti Devi. We don't have Bhakti Deva. Bhakti Devi, she's female. Some of the characteristics of females, of course, that we can equate with bhakti. I'll just list them. I'll just make the point that in the modern age, they're trying to make women like men by making them assertive and dominant. But traditional role of females in most human societies around the world, and that's stressed in Vedic culture. Let's see, I made a few points here. Submissive is also with bhakti. Dependent, and we can see the other side, male also, they're not wanting to submit. We can, while saying these terms, we can think of men who are not like that, bhakti which is like this, women who are like this, and non-devotees who are not like this also. So submissive. Non-devotees are not submissive to Krishna. Dependent, they're not dependent on Krishna. They're effacing, they don't try to promote themselves, keep themselves shy, keep themselves in the background. That goes with humility. Trusting, tendency to trust, that can be misled also. Surrender, the women and devotees, they're supposed to surrender. Taking shelter. Simple-minded, whereas the speculators, the munis who are mentioned in this verse, they may have very complex theories. And actually the world is in many ways very complex. So there are many complex theories which you can dream up in philosophy and science. But then in another way, the world is very simple also. There's Krishna and there's us, and Jeev, Jara and Ishvara. There's the living beings, the material nature, and Krishna. Or if you say Jiva Prakriti and Ishvara, then that means the spiritual nature also. So, what is that? Bhaktivinoda sings. Tumito Prabhu, Amito, Ki. Tumito Amar, Amito Tomar, Ki Kaj Opera Dhane. You are mine, I am yours, and what do we have to bother with anything of anyone else's? That's it. There's you and me. Simple, trusting, dependent, these are all characteristics of bhakti. So bhakti is a female venture. We all have to become like women. Or women can naturally, by their qualities, be Krishna conscious if they divert their attention toward Krishna. So bhakti is feminine, whereas the process of karma, jnana and yoga, they could be termed as masculine, because in karma then kartaham, I am the doer, ishvaroham, ham bhogi, I am the Lord, I am the enjoyer. This mentality comes in karma. And jnana, it's again by one's own efforts, one tries to, and yoga, one tries, by one's own efforts, one tries to understand the transcendental. And the common mistake is that even after understanding that there is God, this supreme dominator, that instead of submitting to Him, one wants to become Him. So these are masculine ventures, karma, jnana and yoga, whereas bhakti is female. But we don't find in any human that anyone's completely male or completely female in their characteristics. Krishna himself is not just dominating and totally independent. He becomes dominated by bhakti, by the bhakti of his bhaktas. Although he is by nature independent, he becomes submissive to his devotees. Aham bhakta paradhino nahi aswatantra iva dvija. He says that I am subordinate, I'm controlled by my devotees. I'm not independent. You thought I was independent? You're wrong. Well, it says so in the Bhagavatam. Well, they got it wrong. Yes, Krishna is independent. Tattva vichar. Ontologically, Krishna is independent. But rasa vichar, and if you want, you can say it's also tattva vichar. If we get to the heart of who is Krishna, then Krishna is not independent. He is dependent. And that if we get to the heart of the matter, then sadhunang hridayang tvahang sadhunang hridayang mahyam maranyatena jananti nahang tebhyo managapi. What is the heart of Krishna? What's in Krishna's heart? The sadhus are in his heart. And what's in the heart of the sadhus? Krishna, because they know no one but him, and he knows no one but them. So, nahi swatantra iva dvija. Sadhu bhyagrasta hridaya. The sadhus have captured my heart, Krishna says. Bhakta janapriya. Bhaktair bhakta janapriya. Even those who are devotees of my devotees, because they're devotees of my... I'm not only my devotees, but if anyone becomes a devotee of my devotee, I become... I consider themselves very dear to me. So, no one's fully masculine. When in the Western world people first see pictures of Krishna, I personally had this experience, I thought it was a female figure. And when devotees tried to paint Krishna with very masculine looking features, like Renaissance paintings of very muscular men, Srila Prabhupada didn't like that. He said that this idea of masculine beauty, that is the idea of beauty of the meat eaters. And the soft features, Srila Prabhupada said, which are actually Krishna's, that is the conception of physical beauty of the milk drinkers. So masculinity gone too far means, the only masculinity without a tempering of femininity. This is all yin-yang discussion. Yeah? The Chinese are really into that. Then it becomes demoniac, just domination without any softness or love. Bhakti means love. It's feminine, and domination, exploitation, that's masculinity gone too far. Of course, in love you need male and female also for this. For the highest level of love, there's dasya bhav, sakhya bhav. Dasya bhav may be between male and male, and sakhya bhav is between male and male, generally. And then vatsalya bhav, it's parents to children. But in madhurya prem, or Shringara Rati, Shringaras. It has to be male and female. So they have different and complementary characteristics, complementary, but sometimes they seem to oppose each other. A perfect equilibrium of male and female, that is not wanted. Because by the interaction of male and female, the opposing characteristics, they come together, they complement each other, but where there's lack of complementariness, that produces rasa, relationship. And no absolute compatibility, then it all becomes one, and then it becomes Mayavadi. So there should be some rasa also, where the male appears to be, the male feature appears to be in competition with the female feature, but it's all on the platform of Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. It's simply blissful, spiritual, nectarian exchanges. So this can be understood by those who are rasik. Rasik is another word for bhakta, those who are relishing the rasa. And we see that in the world of speculative worldviews, in the Western world, there's always this pendulum, this cultural pendulum between hard, soulless rationality, and then it swings toward romanticism, and we just define everything and understand everything and forget about all these emotions. And then you get people who say, no, let's talk about the trees and the nature and love and beauty. And he goes back and forward between these things without any resolution. Although as the world becomes more demoniac, it becomes, there's no aestheticism or love or any such thing, even on the mundane platform. So, in the Indian philosophical outlook, is the bhakti is aestheticism. Rasik, the term rasik there's no real translation into English, but the closest you might get is connoisseur or aesthete, someone who's aesthetic, who appreciates beauty, art, fineness, culture. So Krishna, he is rasik, and devotees, they are rasik. This is a feminine, subtle tendency, whereas masculine tends to be very, very more gross and what we might call realistic, whereas practical. Whereas feminine is more subtle, feeling, and both things are needed. And when we say bhakti is feminine, doesn't mean that it's absolutely feminine, because something practical also needed. Even Yoga Maya, who arranges the pastimes of Krishna, is she knows, because she knows how to do all these things. Like women know how to arrange inviting people, arranging the dinner. There's household management is for women. It's management, but it's a feminine tendency. Because household means people and guests and relationships. So that's the female side. So it's not that Krishna himself is completely masculine. Even Radha, one reason that she's so pleasing to Krishna is because she doesn't fully submit to him. And Krishna and Radha, they enjoy the rasa of fighting, sulking, but all on the platform of pure love. And we also find devotees, pure devotees, are very masculine. I mean, Arjuna, that was a great insult for him, or that he had to be a eunuch for 1 year. For a great fighter to be a eunuch, to be feminine, it couldn't be. That Krishna, he says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna that Sambhavitasya charkirte maranat richate. Death is worse than, for one who's been honored, dishonor is worse than death. But to be a eunuch is practically, it's worse than death for a kshatriya, to dress in a sari and all this kind of thing. But Arjuna, he accepted that. He didn't die because he had some service to do toward his brothers, toward Yudhishthira, and it was required also. It came in useful because the Pandavas had to live incognito. But to be a eunuch was it's horrible for a kshatriya to be. That's the greatest insult that could be given to them, to be called a eunuch. So Hanuman was very masculine. Bhim, who's the most masculine person in all the Puranas and all the Shastras? It must be Bhim. But if you say, where's the feminine in Bhim? Because he was principled also. Principled also means that he acted out of affection. He acted out of affection and he became subordinate to Draupadi. And he acted out of affection, not just out of duty, but out of affection toward his brothers. He fought, and he's a great devotee. Bhim, Hanuman, they're the same personality, as we know from Madhvacharya, who's also very masculine in his approach to bhakti. That's right. Combating others, defeating all other theories. But then you see he composed so many beautiful prayers to Krishna, and in his sampradaya, so many beautiful prayers, appreciating the beauty and the delightful pastimes of Krishna. So although devotees, they are in relationship to Krishna feminine, but he also likes some male friends. And masculinity he appreciates. And in his Dwarka Leela, he appreciates being with Arjuna is his best friend, and they go hunting together and they talk about kshatriyas, they talk about fighting and war and weapons. That's what they're interested in. So, although bhakti is intrinsically feminine, it's not that masculinity is proscribed. Nor is it that devotees in male bodies should deliberately try to be feminine in an artificial way, for instance, by wearing saris. We might think, well, that would help us to feel more submissive and we want to be gopis, so better we wear a sari. And it's proposed, and up to the present day, some devotees do it. I'm not talking about these, what do you call these? They come on the train, the hijri? What? Hijra. They come on the men, they're very clearly men, usually very strong, but they're dressed as women. And they make their body movement artificially like women. So not like that we should externally imitate. But in devotional service, a man who may have the outward identity of a man may be internally cultivating the mood of a woman, literally of a gopi in Vrindavan. It may be that a devotee in the body of a woman is also cultivating the spirit of a male in Vrindavan, or in Dwarka, or anywhere else, or in Ram Leela. So when we say bhakti is feminine, it doesn't mean the femininity of this material world, but the femininity of the material world also reflects the original femininity of the gopis of Vrindavan, the queens of Dwarka, of Kunti Devi, who's making this prayer to Krishna. So Krishna is ultimately the only male. The desire to be a big person in this world and to show how great I am, that's just an imitation of Krishna. Krishna's great. He's the only big person. Everyone else is very small. Everyone is very small. Krishna can make us big, but the bigness of this material world, it's meaningless anyway. To be a big shot. As I often say when speaking in Hindi, Aaj ka Raja kal ka kutta. The king of today is the dog of tomorrow. And actually, Srila Prabhupada, he said that one astrologer had told his godbrother, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, that the first Prime Minister of India, he said there's a man in Sweden who has 2 dogs, and one of them was previously the first Prime Minister of India, independent India, whose name I want, and you all know what his name is. So he had that propensity. He was a woman hunter. He was a licentious person. So he became a dog. And now mustard. A dog at that time means he's already passed on to some other birth. So this idea of being big and being masculine and dominant, well, that's also needed in devotional service. Like Madhvacharya fighting against Mayavadis and all kinds of people, and so that's also required. Srila Prabhupada was also very aggressive in promoting devotional service. When some of his female disciples who were distributing books, which is in the Western world, it means it's quite, here of course also, but especially there, it's a very outgoing kind of activity. And so some of his disciples who are distributing books asked Srila Prabhupada that how this aggressiveness that we need to have in distributing Srila Prabhupada's books in the airports in America, how do we reconcile that with the qualities of women that we're supposed to develop? And Srila Prabhupada said, you can be aggressive for Krishna. So in this world, some masculinity is required also for organization, we see Nityananda Prabhu, Balaram, very masculine type. He would subduing the atheists, Pashanda Dalan. He was subduing very, very strong in subduing the atheists. So that's also required. Within India, non-devotees have often criticized the bhakti cult, that it has caused so much damage to India. Because of all this bhakti, they say in Orissa that Prataparudra lost his strength and therefore he became overcome. But Srila Prabhupada countered that by saying that, well, we see the two great epics that have so much influenced the culture of India are Ramayana and Mahabharata, and they're both war stories. And the hero in both cases is a great devotee. The Ramayana and Mahabharata. So Ramayana is Hanuman, and Mahabharata Arjuna. In terms of the fighting, the heroes are course, Rama killed Ravana, but Hanuman, he was very dominant, very prominent within the fighting. So you may say, well, he didn't seem very feminine. He's up till today, the brahmacharis and the bodybuilders in India, they worship Hanuman as being the strong, very strong figure. But and then he burned Lanka. But why out of a mood of submission to Rama, out of his bhakti, out of his love for Rama. So love can be male also, but it's bhakti is the tendency is in bhakti is to submit. So even the man submits to the woman in bhakti, whereas the fully male tendency is to dominate. So that in the male that becomes subordinated. So that's required. It's also required for self-realization, for discrimination between right and wrong, for discrimination between what is real and what is unreal, this philosophical spirit. So that's also required in devotional service in this world. Otherwise, one can very easily be misled. If one is simply trying to cultivate devotion to Krishna, but one has no clear understanding of what constitutes devotion, then by one's feelings one may be misled. So that's also required. But simply to discriminate between spirit and matter, without developing love for Krishna, then we miss the point. So both aspects are required. That accusation that bhakti has spoiled India, during the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's preaching, that accusation was there that bhakti makes people weak-minded, and now we have to, in Bengal especially, we have to rise up and throw out these British. And they accused bhakti, they call it mayali bhakti, which means effeminate bhakti. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, no, we're not interested in that. We're not interested in this effeminacy. Pure femininity, yes, but not this cringing, obsequious femininity. Bhakti doesn't mean that one becomes just obsequious. Obsequious means that one becomes like too much submissive, but almost making a show of it. Without any, that means you lose all strength of your own personality. But no, bhakti means you develop a strong personality. And again, Radha is the most dear to Krishna because she has such strength of... She's fully submissive to Krishna in one sense, but in other sense, she doesn't take any nonsense from him. She lets him know when she's not pleased with him. Whereas others, Chandravali, Gopi, she doesn't show. There are different natures of heroines described in Rasa Shastra. The left-wing one, they'll when they're upset, they'll let it known to their lover. But the right-wing one will just keep quiet and not say anything, and she'll cry inside her heart, but she won't. If she's upset with the lover, she won't show that to anyone. But Krishna actually likes the Vama Swabhav, the left-wing Gopi. This is all discussed in great detail in Rasa Shastra. So, that feminine tendency, that one is fully gives one's heart to the lover. Not the low-class woman is one who Swairani, she has so many lovers, but the real lover, even she may be Vama Swabhava, she may be hot-headed but it's only in relation to one lover, not that she's going here and there and here and there. So, just fully focused only on Krishna. That this idea you worship many gods, that's like prostitution. You want something, take something from someone else, something from someone else. It means no love for anyone. Just prostitute. What you can get. You satisfy different gods for whatever you can get from them. It's prostitution. Whereas Krishna Bhakti is one-pointed, only to Krishna, only to Krishna. Ashrishava padaratam pinashtu mam adarshanan marmahatam kurotu va yatha tatha va vidadhatu lampato mad prananathas tu saeva napara. Even he may treat me nicely or mistreat me, make me happy by letting me see him, or crush me, or under his feet, or make me broken-hearted by not letting me see him. But anyway, whatever he is, even if I consider him a bad character, that Krishna is my Lord, that's all. So this one-pointed by that is the complete dedication to Krishna. And not considering oneself, this idea to promote oneself. Let me show how I'm very great. Even within bhakti, if one is doing that, it's not really bhakti at all. Bhakti means to want to promote Krishna, that's all. Let Krishna be glorified. So this idea to be ordinary, just like the man may be out fighting, the wife is at home, like this. This Sanskrit word for housewife, grihini. Although there have been in the history of India some women who have gone out and fought also that Jhansi Rani, but then there was no male leader, so she did that also. So the idea to be ordinary rather than extraordinary, that is the very essence of bhakti. And then one may be extraordinary, like Hanuman, extraordinary, but only when it was required for serving Rama. Otherwise, he was a minister. Means not ordinary. He's not, but he was a minister for Sugriva in the jungle kingdom of Kishkinda. There was nothing, just a monkey in the forest. No, but then when he had to serve Rama, then all his extraordinary qualities came. Otherwise, there's no need to show that. So to be ordinary rather than extraordinary, that is the tendency of the devotees. That the whole of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, that if we search through Chaitanya Charitamrita, or the essence of his pastimes, of Radha's, the gopis, feeling of dissatisfaction with Krishna that at Kurukshetra, that they got him, but they were very demanding actually. They're very demanding. That's also maybe a female tendency. When they capture the lover, then they may be they expect a lot from him. So that's good to have Krishna as the lover, because if you expect a lot from him, Krishna can give a lot, which others can't give. But the gopis, they're dissatisfied at Kurukshetra. They met Krishna, which they so much wanted to do for such a long time. They met him, but still they're dissatisfied, and they wanted to bring him back to Vrindavan. So that verse is there that, let me see if Ahushchatena linanaba padaravindam yogeshvarai hridi vichintya agadha bodham sangsara kupa patito taranava lambam geham jusham Api what is it? Udarayat sadanaha. I wrote it down because manasi. I left one word out. Manasyudayat sadanaha. That ahuschat. They said. Nalina Naba Padaravinda. Nalina means Krishna. After all, you're God. You're that fellow we hear about who's this lotus springs out of your navel and then Brahma. Yeah, okay, all right, we know all about that. So, the lotus feet of Narayan are meditated upon by the yogis, great yogis, Muninama Malatmanam. They think of you who are beyond the power of the intellect to understand, who are the only hope for people who have fallen in the well of materialistic life. You're the only one who can pick them up. So, even though you're so great and all, still we're just housewives. So we pray that you may also appear in our hearts. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in commenting on this verse, which is secretly hidden as the essence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feelings, he comments that the gopis, as they are wont to do, this feminine characteristic of speaking in one way as if to praise, but the undercurrent which can be found if the subtle undercurrent, which if one is grossly masculine, one cannot find that at all. But the subtle undercurrent is their transcendental, blissful, loving discontent with Krishna. For how coming in front of them like this with all these horses and elephants and shoes on. They never had shoes on in Vrindavan. And chariots and what is all this? Who do you think you are? So this idea that all right, we're housewives. And you think you're you think you're God or something. Think you're God or something like that, but who do you think you are? You're making this big show. So this desire to be very ordinary. There's the more splendor, magnificence, opulence, show and trumpets and all this kind of thing, then the mood of sweetness is broken. So even though Vrindavan is more opulent, even in terms of real opulence, jewels, gold, pearls, coral, all this kind of thing, than even Vaikuntha. But no one even notices it because they're overwhelmed by the sweetness and simplicity of Krishna's pastimes. So that may be a feminine tendency also to want to enjoy opulence and very comfortable living, but more a propensity is the pure propensity for pure love, which that in the hearts of the gopis of Vrindavan, that just completely overshadows any other desire. So that even if they're running to Krishna and they want to dress nicely, but they forget, they get so bewildered that they put the upper clothing on the lower part of their body, the lower part on the upper, and they run to Krishna. So that feminine quality, to be attracted to Krishna, like the iron filings are attracted to the magnet. So the male is dominant and the female is dominated. Yeah. Oh, that I was saying, that it may be externally one has a male form, and internally one is meditating on the fear. So just like the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they were gopis of the spiritual world, and they revealed that in their writings, the pastimes of Vrindavan. But externally, they acted as males, very humble, no doubt. They did have very dominant, especially Rupa and Sanatan. They had very dominating positions within the government of Nawab Hussain Shah, but they became Tyaktva Turnamat Shesha Mandalapati Shrening Sada Tuchavat Budva Dina Ganesha Ko Karunaya Kupina Kantashrito. So they left that situation of being in a very dominant, aristocratic situation. They're very politically powerful and wealthy, and they deliberately took a low position where they wouldn't get all the material respect that went with the role of the king's main ministers. They left that behind and took up the life of beggars. So Krishna is predominant, but then we always hear in Vrindavan, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari. We don't hear about Krishna Vrindavaneshwar. Sometimes Vrindavananath. Generally when we say the king of Vrindavan, that generally refers to Nanda Maharaj. So Krishna's name is Vrajendra Kumar, the son of the king of Vrindavan. Vrindavananatha, that name is used by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Falashruti of the Gurvashtakam. Vrindavan, Sevaiva Labhyo, Vrindavananatha, Sevaiva Labhyo. One, by chanting this prayer, one will get the direct service to Vrindavananatha. But generally, it's considered that Radha, she is the queen of Vrindavan, not that Krishna is the king of Vrindavan. So, what happened? Krishna is supposed to be predominant. Is it some spiritual feminism to put Radha on top? No, it's spiritual realism. That Krishna, he agrees to become agrees to, but at this stage there's no logical consideration. He's simply, even though he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead with all the Shivas and Brahmas and demigods and ordinary me and yous worshipping him in millions of universes, when he comes in association of Radha, he becomes totally bewildered and he forgets it all, and he becomes submissive to her love. He becomes like, just forgets it all. He forgets himself. Such is the power of her love. Or not that she's trying to dominate him, but it's just like that. She can't turn down her love. Rather that it's out of her control also. It's always increasing. So it's not exactly feminism that Radha dominates, although he is constitutionally dominant, but in practical affairs then she is dominant. So it's not feminism, it's transcendental realism. That's in the highest pastimes of Krishna, which are very difficult to understand. They're not meant to be understood. That's the business of the Muninam Amalatmanam. That is their business, to try and understand. Whereas the simple devotee is simple in the sense they just accept. Oh yes, Krishna. That's Krishna. The big brain, he won't accept that the elephant will go through the eye of the needle. The simple devotee will accept, oh yes, Krishna, he can do as he likes. So, for practical organization, when Krishna's Krishna as God is the supreme male predominator. Krishna in Vrindavan, he's still the supreme male, but he can't predominate in the way that he does in Vaikuntha and everywhere else. Because the power of love, of bhakti, predominates over him. It's so powerful, not that it's absent elsewhere, but it becomes so strong in Vrindavan. But that doesn't mean that we should try to imitate that in this material world in any way, just by putting on saris, men putting on saris, or trying to live like women. Internally, that may be cultivated. Someone who is very fortunate and very highly elevated may cultivate such a desire. But otherwise, in this world, there are certain ways of doing things. Men should be like men, women should be like women. And if we try to mix it up, as is going on in the modern world, we get all kinds of strange things, like people having operations so that men become women and women become men. And when I was in England, I saw some man, he's like 70 years old or something, and he's already got grandchildren, and then he's having an operation to become a woman. It's just completely bizarre. Of course, if you say that in England, you could be arrested for saying that, because you're not supposed to say anything against these kind of things. But there's certain roles to play. In this material world, this social setup is should be, or the aim should be a facsimile of Vaikuntha or Ayodhya, not of Vrindavan. When we try to imitate Vrindavan, we get a chaos. The chaos in Vrindavan is the chaos of the woman predominating the man. That's also not official. That's unofficial. That is managed by Krishna's Yogamaya potency. In this material world, it goes on under the Yogamaya potency that brings out more and more bliss. But in the material world, everything's under the Mahamaya potency, and it just brings more and more misery. So therefore, we should follow dharma. Dharma means the laws that are given in Shastra, that by following we come to a harmonious position. So men should act as men, women should act as women. We see that Srila Prabhupada several times speaks against the whole concept of women being leaders in human society, which that this kind of thing could get Prabhupada's books banned if anyone dared to read them or cared to read them. It could, but it makes sense, because woman's nature is meant to be predominated and to serve the husband. If we say that in the modern age, people will protest. But this feminism and this mundane feminism just pits women against men and tries to make women like men. And it doesn't work. We see even within our own ISKCON that it's happened at least twice that I know of, that because there's this idea that, well, we should show that women can do everything as well as men, and we have to show that our society, it's not male-dominated and women have equal opportunities, so a woman becomes a temple president. Then she neglects her husband because she's so busy being the temple president and in a dominant role. And then he doesn't have a wife. So what happens? Well, he gets another wife. And it happened recently. A woman was made it means a female devotee, not an ordinary woman, but she's put in an unnatural role of being a leader at GBC. And her husband, we're not trying to exonerate the husband, but he didn't have a wife anymore because she's busy running around here and there, being a leader. And then he found some other woman. So it causes severe social problems when we try to go against the natural order as given in Shastra. So, bhakti is feminine, and practically the whole endeavor in devotional service is to submit to Krishna. That doesn't mean that we become slaves or robots. In Bengal they're saying this bhakti. We're trying to throw out the British. This is during the early part of the 19th century. The Bengalis. Bengal was a hotbed of revolutionary activity. So Bengalis, they were very much into it. Let's throw out these British, and they didn't like bhakti because they thought that makes you just effeminate, slave mentality. Whereas Vivekananda, he said, be strong. You see, our Shastra tells you to be strong. That's true. There's the whole part of being of the self-realization process. It requires great strength of mind. So Vivekananda was emphasizing, be strong, and use that that idea of being. Hinduism means being strong, not being weak. So we should be strong and throw out the British. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was promoting bhakti. No, we're strong. We're not. It's bhakti means submission, but it doesn't. It means submission to the right person and not submission to all the wrong people. So even your attempt to throw out the British, that's you're throwing out the wrong people. Your struggle is the wrong struggle. So all these points have to be understood very carefully. Otherwise, if we don't properly understand how Krishna is the supreme male and we're all female in relation to Krishna, then we may become Mayavadis, thinking that, well, we're all male. Or we may become Sahajias, to artificially become female. Or we may become victims of this mundane feminism in which we think that within this world males and females should have the same roles. So all these points should be understood very carefully. How we're all ultimately female in relation to Krishna. Within that, many devotees, they're not gopis or queens of Dwaraka, but they may be also in male roles and male mentality, spiritual male mentality. And within this world, there is the male role, female role. They will also be different in different circumstances. A male Kshatriya is very masculine, whereas the Brahmin, he may be more soft, or he may be hard also, not physically, but in establishing Siddhanta, like Madhvacharya, who is very hard, it may seem in one sense. So, but anyway, in general, there are certain roles prescribed by Shastra for males and females, and we should understand these. Gyatva Shastra Vidhanoktam Karya Karyami Arhasi. All these things are described in Shastra, so we should understand all of this according to Shastra and act accordingly in this world. So instead of women trying to be big leaders and big heroes in this way, they can take inspiration from great women like Kunti Devi, who is the wife of a great Kshatriya and the mother of course, Nakul and Sahadev. They don't get featured so much, but one of them is better than either of them. Is more than all these soldiers in all the armies in the world put together at the present time. But they were outshone, you could say, by Yudhishthira and especially Bhima and Arjuna. And Bhima and Arjuna, in terms of their military acts, were really extraordinary personalities. So she was the mother of great heroes, but she didn't try to take a leadership role herself, direct leadership role. So there are so many women in the world, even today, that we find that I saw myself in Bangladesh that so many men had been killed during the 1971 liberation war. Then I went to Bangladesh for the first time in 1979. There's so many women pulling on their families with no husband, and heroics within our movement. One devotee described to me how one devotee, he was there married with his wife, and the devotee was doing great service for so many years, and then he became very sick, not in old age, in middle age, and the wife is looking. She didn't abandon him. She looked after him very nicely. Not looked after, but going on right today, right at this moment, and looking after the family. No complaining and no promoting women's rights. Just quietly doing her service very nicely, dutiful to her husband. So these are the great role models of women, not those who want to show that we can do as good as the men. This is all feministic nonsense. So, Hare Krishna. Yeah, any question or comment about this place? Yeah.
What is described about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Vajrati, Katorani, Kusuma?
Yeah. No, that's described about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's originally describing about Ramachandra Bhagavan. What is it? Vajradapi Kotorani Kusamapi Komulam. Yeah. Hard as a thunderbolt, soft as a rose. So that's described originally about Ramachandra Bhagavan. And that's applied to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. So?
For the personality of God, for devotees also?
For the personality of Godhead, for devotees. Should it be for devotees also? Well, it depends what role they're playing. If one... To be as hard as a thunderbolt may not be required for everyone. If one's an acharya, a preacher, he may be. If one has the social role of a Vaishya or a Shudra, then how is he going to be as hard as a thunderbolt? It doesn't apply. So it doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. It may apply to a Brahmana preacher or to a Kshatriya. That's for great personalities. Yeah, you want to say something? And that actually is stated in that verse. How does that verse continue? Vajradapi koturani kusamapi komalam. And what's the next two lines of the verse? It specifically says that this is a characteristic of great personalities. That's not actually from Shastra per se, that's from one Raghuvangsha, I believe. He'll look that up now, which is written by, who's that by? Raghuvangsha Kalidas? I'm not sure. No, it's not from Raghuvangsha, it's from Uttaram Charit, some work. Oh, I'm not sure who it's by. Uttara Ramacharit. Uttara Rama Charita, if you want to say all the Sanskrit syllables. Vajrad, you can look up Vajrad api koturani kusamapi komalam. Vajrad, just look up Vajrad, V-A-J-R-A-D. That should be enough to get it for you. Got it? Vajrad api koturani kusamapi komalam. See, previously people would have to remember all these things. Now you can just look it up. And then the brain becomes weak. Children who are trained from the beginning and just learn, memorize by hearing, and their brain becomes very strong. Nowadays they have the idea not to learn by rote, but actually it makes if that's done in a young age, that makes the brain very strong, so that later one's power of memory, and other mental faculties also become very strong. So it's Vajradapi Kuturani, Mriduni Kusumadapi, Loko Taranam Chaitangsi ko nu vigyatam ishvaraha. The hearts of those above common behavior is not for everyone. Are sometimes harder than a thunderbolt and sometimes softer than a flower. How can one accommodate such contradictions in great personalities? It doesn't say the source of that. Elsewhere it says. I don't know how to do this. Lokotara. So it means people above the ordinary. In the modern age we see it's not so uncommon to find people whose hearts are harder than a thunderbolt. But it's not offset by the softer than a flower part, and so they just become nasty demons by having that nastiness. If the heart is harder than a thunderbolt, sometimes shows that characteristic, at other times softer than a flower, that means there's the balance there, that it's the harshness or the softness are exhibited according to the need of the situation. But if one's just hard, that means it's just a demon, that's all. There's no softness. Generally bhakti is soft, not hard. What were you going to say?
In ashrama system, we see that the brahmanas are the guides for the society.
Brahmanas are the guides of society in varnashram. Guides, yeah, they're ideological guides, although practical guides are kshatriyas. They practically enforce.
Brahmanas, like they advise kshatriyas. So when we give brahmana initiation to the Matajis.
Oh, this isn't a Brahmin initiation to Matajis. Well, it's not actually. It's semantics. That's all. Women are the female role is one. Anyway, that's another whole big discussion. I'm not going to get into it now. I have discussed it previously, but that's another big discussion. I'm not going to get into that now. It's too big a topic to append to a class on a different subject. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I'm being hard as a thunderbolt here. You rascal! You see, I'm not a great person. I can't do it. I can only pretend. Hare Krishna. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare. I'd said that bhakti is female with qualities like submission, well, especially that submission, but that Sri Radha is Vama Swabhav, hot-headed in relation with Krishna, and Krishna enjoys that. We find in Chaitanya Charitamrita it's stated that Krishna relishes the rebuking by his lovers more than the prayers of the Vedas. So you may say, well, how is that submissive? How is that feminine? It's not very submissive. But it's to be understood that there's a great difference between the rebukes given by a loved person than by the enemies. When Shishupal, he insulted Krishna and got his head chopped off. But the devotees who do so, they do so out of affection, and the gopis who do so, they do so to increase Krishna's transcendental pleasure. Even though they may feel anger, but it's all, the underlying current is one of wanting to please Krishna. So, mat prananatas sa eva naparaha. They have no life of their Lord except Him. So that's the underlying feminine principle, if you want, or submissiveness. It's everything that they do is for Krishna's pleasure. Krishnarte kila cheshta. Everything we should imbibe. This is what as practicing or aspiring devotees this is the mood that we try to cultivate, that everything should be done for His pleasure, for His sake. So that is so deeply in the nature, or not, that is the nature of the great devotees, that they can even apparently act contrary to that. But apparently contrary, but they can't actually be contrary to that. So that gives Krishna great pleasure that when the relationship is very close, then there can be chastisement. That's why the Srila Prabhupada said the chastisement of the Guru by his Guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the disciples, they would be very happy at that, because it meant that there's very closeness. Either to chastise, either one should be very close or very far away. Either in enmity or great. When there's a close affection, and then one is confident that by chastising there won't be any break in the affection. The affection is so strong, so solidly founded, that there won't be any break in that the person won't go away and think, oh, he cannot imagine that the person who is chastising has any bad feeling toward them. So this should be understood.